This week's bonus video, we're going to be discussing 5 films that I feel were overrated. Maybe they were great for their time, but they haven't stood the test of time, or they were overrated to begin with. These films are Gone with the Wind, The Sound of Music, The Way We Were, The Shining, and It's a Wonderful Life. And I'm going to explain my reasons for why I feel these films were either overrated or haven't stood the test of time, so let's get into it. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's bonus video. This is going to be a controversial topic, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to list my 5 most overrated films from Hollywood's golden era, from the 30s to the 70s. I have 2 of them from the 70s. These films are Gone with the Wind, yeah, I can hear it now. The Sound of Music, The Way We Were, The Shining, and It's a Wonderful Life. Let's take a look at why I think these are 5 of the most overrated films in Hollywood. Not the most overrated, just 5 examples of extremely overrated films. We're going to start with The Way We Were. The Way We Were is often upheld as one of the great romantic dramas of the 1970s, largely because of Barbra Streisand and Robert Redford's undeniable chemistry and the lingering power of the theme song, The Way We Were, sung by Barbra Streisand. But beneath its glossy reputation lies a film whose message and structure feel surprisingly dated. The movie places enormous emphasis on the idea that romance can bridge fundamentally incompatible worldviews, and yet has ultimately reduced political conviction to an obsolete rather than a meaningful part of identity. Katie's activism, her passion for justice, and her refusal to conform is framed less as strengths than as quirks that made her difficult to love. The film subtly reinforces the idea that a woman must temper her beliefs in order to maintain a relationship, an implication that resonates poorly today. The film is acclaimed, is also inflated by nostalgia. The central couple is widely celebrated as tragic lovers, but much of the emotion heft comes from audience projection than from the story itself. Many of the conflicts are left unresolved, character motivations are thinly expressed, and the ending is remembered as more profound than it actually is. The Way We Were became iconic largely because of Streisand and the 1970s cultural climate, not because the film offers a timeless or deeply layered examination of love in any meaningful way. In many ways, its reputation far exceeds what the narrative delivers. Now let's talk about It's a Wonderful Life. Few films are as universally adored as It's a Wonderful Life, but that widespread affection can obscure how dated and oversimplified its central message can feel. The film clings to the idea that personal sacrifice is virtuous no matter the cost, and that a man's worth is fundamentally tied to his role in serving his community. While deeply resonant for audiences emerging from World War II, this framing can come across as reductive today. George Bailey's emotional suffering is romanticized rather than truly addressed. The film's tidy resolution suggests that external validation and communal gratitude are adequate solutions to despair, depression, and modern angst. Modern viewers might find this mimicking, especially in times when mental health is more openly acknowledged. The film's acclaim is also built on decades of cultural reputation. Re-released annually, it became a holiday staple by accident. Its copyright lapsed, making it cheap for television stations to air. As a result, its reputation has snowballed far beyond what many viewers feel after watching it with fresh eyes. The story is earnest and well-meaning, but its portrayal of family dynamics, gender roles, and small-town idealism is frozen in a mid-20th century worldview that feels increasingly remote. The film tends to be celebrated as profound when in reality it offers a comforting but ultimately simplistic moral lesson. It treats depression as if you can't really solve that unless you have an angel come down and help you. George Bailey was depressed, suicidally depressed. It never really addresses that in any meaningful way, and that's the problem I have with It's a Wonderful Life. Now on to The Sound of Music. Charming but emotionally and politically simplified. The Sound of Music is beloved for its gorgeous scenery, iconic songs, and Julie Andrews' luminous performance. Yet its reputation as a profound, emotionally rich epic often glosses over how sanitized and sentimental its storytelling truly is. The film transforms a serious historical backdrop, the Holocaust and the encroachment of Nazism in Austria, into a picturesque setting that feels disconnected from the actual stakes of the moment. The Von Trapp family escape is depicted with a lightness that borders on fantasy, reducing the political terror of the era to a dramatic flourish at the end of a performance. The film's message about obedience, tradition, and rigid family structure also feels outdated. Maria's journey ultimately endorses conformity to a domestic expectations. She abandons her spiritual calling and adventurous independence to become a wife and mother. While the songs and imagery remain timeless, the film's moral framing is anchored in mid-century family ideals that no longer resonate universally. Its acclaim is simplified not just by its artistic strengths, but by the decades of cultural nostalgia and repeated television broadcasts. While undeniably charming, the movie's emotional simplicity and historical sanitization make it far less deep or complex than its towering reputation suggests. The Shining, technically brilliant, emotionally distant. The Shining was not even really a big success when it was first released in, I think, 1979. So I grew to love The Shining, but in my opinion, it has some real issues with becoming the classic that it has. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is revered as one of the greatest horror films ever made, but even its admirers often acknowledge that it is cold, distant work, its message rooted in the idea that family life can descend into violence and madness, feels both vague and emotionally hollow. Wendy Torrance, for example, is depicted with a dated, often criticized passivity that reflects the limitations of the 1980s gender expectations. The film's treatment of domestic abuse is ambiguous to the point of avoidance. Thank you, Stanley Kubrick, for that. The very real terror of an unsafe home, leaving the emotional core undeveloped. The film's acclaim is frequently tied to Kubrick's reputation and the strength of its imagery, rather than the coherence of its narrative iconic scene. Here's Johnny, the twins in the hallway, the elevator of blood, have become cultural shorthand for horror, which inflates the film's status beyond its actual emotional impact. Many viewers find it slow, alienating, and more interesting in atmosphere than storytelling. While undeniably influential, its legendary status can feel exaggerated compared to the experiences of watching it, especially for audiences accustomed to more character-driven or emotionally grounded horror. The Shining. Now we're probably coming to the most controversial film on this list, which is Gone with the Wind. There's a lot of people who have very, very strong emotion about this movie being the greatest film of all time. I do not agree with that. I loved it as a child, but as I grew up and watched it more and more, I realized there's real problems with the plot point in this film, namely that it glamorizes and upholds antebellum South, whose entire existence was based on the enslavement of Black people, as something to be cherished and mourned over when it was swept away, gone with the wind, in other words. I don't happen to agree with that assessment any longer. As a child, I did. As an adult, I have more mature opinions on that. Technically, the movie was brilliant. It was gorgeous. It was beautiful. It's soaked in Technicolor glamour, and you couldn't get a more beautiful heroine. Vivian Leigh as Scarlett O'Hara. She's iconic, but this does not override the problems that the film had. Its acclaim is built on scale, the sweeping cinematography, epic runtime, and melodramatic scope impressed viewers in 1939, but the film's legacy has often overshadowed the narrative of weakness. Scarlett O'Hara, though frequently praised as a complex heroine, can also come off as a shallowly drawn, motivated by spite, and vanity more than genuine development. Much of the film's drama relies on soap opera theatrics rather than meaningful emotional transformation. While historically significant, Gone with the Wind is frequently overhyped as a towering work of art, when in reality, much of its reputation comes from nostalgia, scale, and Hollywood legend rather than enduring thematic quality. Its cultural influence remains undeniable, but so do the problems that make it feel increasingly dated. Well, there you have it. That's my list of five of some of the most overrated films. You can tell me what you think I got wrong down below. You can tell me what you think I should have included down below. You can tell me what you think I shouldn't have put on the list down below. I'm sure I've got a lot of Gone with the Wind people out there that love that film. Go ahead and include it down below. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next week.